Hey everybody, welcome back. Psycho Derek here. Only got 3 LPs I'm going to share today. That's all I got ever since Record Store Day, if you can believe that. Just not finding anything online to indulge myself in, or anything out in the wild's just been kind of lacking, and I don't know what's really going on, but as far as 2021 overall goes, it's just been kind of not nearly as successful as last year, so I don't know. I mean, I have picked up some pretty cool items, but just not nearly as much. Um, some of the big grails like last year, but um, I guess that's just how life goes. Can't have every year be a winner every time. But I am picking up some cool stuff that I've always wanted, and yeah, ever since Record Store Day, this is all I've gotten. So. And the whole thing about Record Store Day for me, so I didn't participate because I was actually out of town that day. Couldn't do it, but I was keeping an eye on one thing while I was away online, so I figured that's probably the only way I'm going to acquire it right now. And so as soon as it got listed, the first listing came up, of course I was like, it's an obvious flipper because they were wanting $200 out of it. I'm just like, really? You really think people are going to be that desperate to pay up on that day, $200? It's like, get real, man. But anyways, I was waiting for another copy to hopefully get listed, and surely enough, it got listed for like probably the price it sold for in the shops, for like $25. And this is one I've been kind of anticipating on picking up, because it's never really got an official vinyl release, or reissue rather. I mean, it has, but I think it's been a long time, like a few decades, so it's pretty hard to find. And this is a 2021 release of Negative Space. Came out in 1970, and this was actually a private pressing. And for the longest time, I always thought this was like a demo LP that they were just sending off to different major labels, hoping to scoop up a deal, because I mean, this is how it originally looked too. It just had a plain white cover, no artwork. So it's like they didn't feel the audacity to put in any cover art, which is kind of odd. But yeah, it's called Hard, Heavy, Mean, and Evil, and it's basically, if I had to best describe this, it's kind of stylistically, it's more like a crude, kind of raw, hard rock, heavy psych kind of sound. Very reminiscent of like St. Anthony's Fire or Bent Wind. Particularly Bent Wind, I think, is definitely where these guys kind of land. Certainly more in that hard rock edge. It's very crudely recorded as well. It's kind of got a low fidelity. And there's also like maybe 2 or 3 softer moments, in which case probably my favorite track on here is one of the softer cuts, The Long Hair. It's got this kind of nice recorder throughout the track, giving it kind of a, I don't know, spatial kind of feel to it. And it's got this kind of soft wah-wah guitar throughout the track. Really, really love that one. But otherwise, fantastic hard-edged hard rock. Once again, Isolated Ivory Tower. I'd say the best tracks are actually on side 2. As far as the heavy cuts, The Calm After the Storm was even featured on a Brown Acid comp. I think it was the 7th one, the 7th trip. The Living Dead, Forbidden Fruit. Some nice classic heavy cuts on here. So I forget where these guys are from. Maybe New Jersey. I believe that's where they're from originally. So as the hype sticker announces, a crucial and thundering piece of proto-metal history, which is semi-accurate. I mean, I could see a couple tracks being kind of proto-metal-like, but it's definitely coming after the big boom of like the late 60s, and still resonates towards that kind of sound. So very cool. And this is a Sundazed issue. It's kind of a replica of the original label on Castle, which I think only had like 20 or so releases on it. So original copies just never pop up. I mean, I don't think any have sold on Discogs. And even at record shows, they're like, supposedly in the thousands. So can just forget about it, So this is the way to go. So hopefully, if you see this for like 20 bucks, I'd say scoop it up. It's actually pretty good, pretty solid release. So I'd say the only issue with this, in my opinion, is that I had to crank the volume up a little bit above average. So it wasn't really remastered the best, but it's, again, originally it was already kind of crude recording, so you have to kind of expect that going into it. So that was really my only issue. Too bad they didn't like turn the gain up a little bit or something to for people not having to crank it all the way up just for an average listen. Yeah, if you notice, the shelves are a little wonky as well. I did pull some records out because visited my college buddy over the weekend, and we spun a few records and hung out and played music together, which I haven't done that with anybody in a long time yet. So, since the pandemic, of course, and haven't seen him in a couple years, so it was nice to get back together and record some stuff, and brought my guitar down and turning him on to some old sounds that he's into the older stuff as well, but kind of more into jazz fusion, jazz and funk and soul. But of course, he loves the psychedelic stuff too, and I love educating like in person as well, just vibing with people, But anyways, getting a little off track here, but this next one. So this is one I just looked up one evening because I was just digging it, streaming on YouTube again, and found one copy for 20 bucks on Discogs, and I thought, well, it's a decent price, but the kicker is the jacket was in poor shape, so I was kind of taking a big risk on this. I did ask about the cover, didn't really get a great response from it, but just took the chance because the record was in VG shape, supposedly, but it's actually a little better than VG. This is Doug Randall. This is a Canadian artist with his album Songs for the New Industrial State. This came out in '71, a little after the Psych era, but just looking at that cover, you would think like it's some sort of like freeform jazz or avant-garde jazz, maybe, coming out of the late '60s. But yeah, as it says on the back, a stunning collection of new songs for and about the time we live in. And this is all, I think Doug Randall at the time was like 40 or so years old. He was kind of known as like a radio broadcast kind of businessman, working on like different jingles and advertisements for like different radio companies around Toronto, and I think in Europe as well. He traveled there, and just very busy in like the advertising and radio department. Well, anyways, he was able to hook this deal up with a Canadian broadcast company and produce all these collections of songs that really capture like the radio back then. I mean, as far as really classy pop writing, and the best way I'd describe this as well is that it's not necessarily similar to the Millennium, but as far as being on the same level as class and richness to it, this is just as good in my opinion, just on that same level as stuff as like Kurt Becher's material, like the Millennium and Sagittarius. So highly, out of all the three I'm going to share tonight, this is like the one I recommend the most, actually. So and this copy must have belonged to like some library or radio station copy itself, because it had a sticker on here. Came off pretty well, but had some different numbers and lettering, like it was cataloged away. So very, very stoked to own this. So every track nearly is just they're really memorable tracks after you listen to them after a bit. There's a picture of Doug, and yeah, like I said, the tracks kind of grow on you as well. This is exactly what I wanted the Constant Sound to sound like. The only difference between this and the Constant Sound, the use of vocalists on here works a lot better, I think. They don't sound as dry, and it's got kind of a reverb on almost nearly every track they sing on, and it just gives it a little more pizzazz, or I don't know. It sounds like kind of like Sunshine Pop made for like a business executive, someone in the advertising industry. It's got some great class, and it's not cheesy either. It's actually really well put together. So highly recommend this one. Shot the label there. And this was reissued on CD by Light in the Attic. Didn't get a vinyl release as far as I know, so look into this one. It's super good. Okay, and the last one here. This is one also I just kind of spur of the moment, just kind of splurged on this one because I've been wanting it a long time, and I just thought, I had the funds at the time. I thought to myself, well, time to spend something on, just kind of splurge and just have fun with it. And so I rewatched the Source Family documentary that came out in like 2012. It had been a long time since I seen it. I basically saw it when it came out, and was really just intrigued once again. Just the whole backstory behind the Source Family and Father Yod. And this is one of their more famous records by Yahowah, which was their, I guess you can say, quote-unquote cult band. Because they basically were a cult, but not necessarily in the same way that the Manson family was. I mean, Father Yod, he certainly had like his quirks about him, but a lot of people were turned on by him, and so, I mean, I respect him in that sense. But the 14 wives, killing a guy over jujitsu, I mean, he's got quite of a interesting history behind him. But I mean, I certainly don't look up to the cult in like a positive light. But musically, just for the music alone, when you listen to this, I mean, you can tell these guys were on another trip for sure. And certainly, you could say it's krautrock inspired, but I don't even think these guys were even listening to that stuff at the time. I mean, these guys were so in their own zone and in their kind of own meditative state that it's all just kind of poured out of them naturally, which is why I just love this record so much. This is probably the most appealing or the most accessible for people just getting into the band. And this is a 2003 reissue, I should mention as well. And sadly doesn't have the insert, which I was hoping it was going to have, but that's alright. Sound quality is pretty good. And yeah, like I said, it's very meditative. Probably their heaviest effort, or at least one of them. And if you guys know the bass player Sunflower, who's on the back here, he actually played in the band Fields, which is on Uni label. So they also mentioned that album in the documentary. Highly recommend the documentary if you guys haven't seen it. Really documenting the Source Family pretty well, and at least the members all came out, pretty half decent, and not all blitzed out of their minds, So, yeah, I forgot didn't even mention the name of the album, Penetration, an Aquarian Symphony. It's came out in '74, so they had several albums, and they just kind of released them on their own label. I forget the label that it was on originally. I think it was like Magic Key or something. I forget. But yeah, Yahowah 13 is just it's quite an experience for sure. Mixing a lot of free improvisation and experimental sounds, kind of in a sort of like space rock kind of atmosphere. It's pretty trippy. So yeah, that about does it, guys. So that's all I got. I did have 145 here, but I'm actually going to return it because it didn't turn out very well. It looked near mint, but I think it got played on a bad needle, and I can't play that on my system. It was the $2 Question 45, Aunt Matilda's Double Yummy Blow Your Mind Out Brownies. Yes, that is the title of the track. So it's kind of a cool bubblegum track. It's actually sung by the lead singer of the Archies. What's his name? Dante. Is that his name? Ron Dante? I forget now, but yeah, I got to send that back, unfortunately. As far as other things coming in the mail, I did pick up a CD. Oh yes. But it's actually kind of neat because it compiles all these really rare Garage Psych singles. It's actually one of the Psychedelic States compilations, and it focuses on the North and South Dakota, which they actually had some pretty kick-ass singles back then. So I'll be sharing that when I get it. And there's also a future vacation trip coming up, which I'm pretty pumped about. If it all works out well, it's after July 4th, so I'll be updating you guys on that whenever that day comes. And if I don't make any other future videos up until July 4th, it's probably because there's going to just be cannonballs and massive explosions outside my house leading up to the 4th, so it'll just kind of be impossible to make these videos if it just gets so chaotic out there. So because they got pretty loud the last 2 years I've been here, so there's that. So anyways, won't keep you too much longer. Check out Doug Randall of the three, and stay safe, and we shall see you soon.